I think India is at least half a decade to a decade ahead from most of the developing or developed countries, from a financial services space at least. And the reason I say that is look at the kind of open digital public infrastructure that we have built, which we call it DPI or digital public goods. It is amazing.
Hello everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Indianaut podcast, where we interview some of India's next best analytical and creative minds who are not only revolutionizing their own field, but at the same time transforming India's entrepreneurial ecosystem one step at a time. Our guest for the day is the CEO of Perfios, a leading global SaaS company revolutionizing the Fintech landscape. Founded in 2008, Perfios has made significant strides in credit underwriting solutions, expanding 18 countries. Our guest is a luminary in the Fintech world, with over 2 decades of rich experience in financial services and the Fintech space. He is a master strategist and executionist. His journey involves senior roles in retail and SME banking and a strategic function for a large multinational bank. With our guest at the helm, Perfios has raised $229 million in a new funding round as it looks to deepen its expansion in North America and Europe. We have with us Sabyasachi Goswami. Let us jump right into the conversation. Hi Sabya, I hope you're all settled in.
Absolutely. Thanks, Gautam.
Awesome. Let's get started. So Sabya, let's start from the very beginning, okay? As an early member of the team, when the company was still a small pioneering startup, you had a front row seat to the start of Perfios, right? Can you share the founding story of Perfios and what inspired the team to start a company in the fintech sector, especially focusing on credit underwriting solutions?
Let me take you way back to 2008, where the journey began. Amazing, I would say amazing two technocrats coming and starting the journey. But we all as a founding team, I call them mavericks, all of us as mavericks, because we were thinking to disrupt the industry where industry was just getting there. There was no buzzword called digital transformation, fintech, those days. We were early on. Obviously, we were not liked by our so-called clients those days because it was a thinking process that bunch of technocrats coming and letting us know how banking is to be done. That's not the idea. We started the company to more facilitate the banking space and how they can make the journeys more seamless for the end consumers. But that's not what the original thought was. The initial thought was to make the personal finance space very, very disruptive. Now, when I say disruptive, even if you go today to the tier 4, tier 5 towns in India, maybe tier 1 as well, the personal finance is managed in an Excel spreadsheet. And it's not that people are very comfortable or used to an app or an application where you run your finances. And that's what we tried to build for the common Indians. But the aspiration from day one was made in India for the world. So we built the very, very robust platform based on technology, very high on technology. And we had the capability to kind of aggregate any kind of data from the sources and curate them, make sense, vertical use cases, and then offer it to the end users. But we soon realized that it can just be lifestyle business and you cannot make it a big brand. But while we realized that, one of the important things that I would like to mention is we did not lose hope. What we maintained was that since we have built a robust technology platform, we started imagining what are the things that we can solve for. Now, when we say what are the things we can solve for, 2008, fresh out of subprime crisis, the entire financial world had a lot of issues to overcome. And what are the 3 things that they were facing? First, they wanted to build a quality book, that means less NPAs and a better portfolio. Second, while they were doing that, they wanted lower credit cost. The third, while they were doing above 2, they wanted a brilliant customer seamless journeys. Now, all of this are a little conflicting. And that's where I think we were at the right time to offer the platform, which could get into different use cases. Obvious one being because the first use case that I said is NPAs. So the decisioning platform came first as a use case. That's the initial short journey where we started from.
Awesome. And Sabyasachi, fast forward since 2008, you've been a pioneer in the SaaS space, right? How has that journey been? That, from being a startup to being a global company now serving 18 countries?
I can remember only three adjectives: exciting, roller coaster ride, but a lot of learning. Every day for the last 14 years, we have been learning, unlearning, learning, unlearning. Because in the technology space, every day the new technologies are coming in and you are outdating yourselves. Right.
Mhm.
So I think there is immense amount of learning. So because of that, there are a lot of excitement that we feel. Now, when I say excitement, why the excitement? Look at when there was no buzzword called digital or transformation. Then came the machine learning, then came AI. Today we are talking of open AI, Gen AI, whatever you can call it. When we started building the platform, since that day we had machine learning in place, though it may become a buzzword today. But we had those because we knew when you are operating with large data sets in a regulatory environment, you need to be absolutely clear what you are doing, right? And how you are operating in that zone. So I think the journey has been a lot of learning, a lot of excitement, but a lot of roller coaster. We had to do a lot of evangelization. So the journey from one country to 18 countries has never been easy. We had to go and create that evangelization, that awareness that these are the things that will be required for tomorrow. But what I liked about the global market is they are hungry for transformation. So I really love that when I travel to any country and I speak. I think India is at least half a decade to a decade ahead from most of the developing or developed countries, from a financial services space at least. And the reason I say that is look at the kind of open digital public infrastructure that we have built, which we call it DPI or digital public goods. It is
Absolutely.
amazing. Riding on their rails, the fintech community in India has grown super fast. And thanks to the policymakers, thanks to the government of India, who could build and think of the country at such depth, way ahead than many countries. So that's amazing. That's what I would say.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Sabya, I'd love to follow up with you on the digital public infrastructure and specifically the account aggregator framework, right? Which is something that Perfios has been highly involved in, right? So the account aggregator framework is, poised to revolutionize financial inclusion in India, right? So
Absolutely.
how does Perfios plan on leveraging this framework to enhance the financial services landscape? And what opportunities do you foresee emerging from this ecosystem? And additionally, on the flip side, what are some concerns or challenges with scaling the account aggregator framework's implementation right now?
So firstly, I would like to address there are no concern and challenges. It's definitely going to transform the way the financial services are accessible to the last mile. So what it will happen is, even as a company, our motto is to make the financial services product available easily in real time to the last mile. And how do we do that? We enable and facilitate the financial institution in their digital transformation journey so that that can be made accessible to the last mile. Right? Account aggregator will help accelerate that vision. Right? Because imagine a small company, whether me or somebody else, we have only that much that we can disrupt or make a change. But when the policymakers create such a stack, which is so wonderful that you can exchange the data through a medium of a consent, where the data requester and the data giver is talking to each other with a medium of consent. It's just amazing. And today it is that becomes the source of truth first. Then today it is one form of data, tomorrow it can be two forms of data, and then you can have multiple data forms. What will that solve for? That today, the way the banking operates is a lot on a physical mode, people coming from here and there, and COVID has taught us that we need to be ready and be prepared for anything. Now, account aggregator will be a framework where I think the data will get exchanged through a proper consent. And that's the right way to do it. And I think the solutions are built on top of it, which will actually help the financial institutions and the end consumer to avail financial services at a much faster pace. So I don't see it as a challenge it is going to facilitate uh, the banks to get their services across to the people whom they want to reach at a much effective and an efficient way. Likewise, companies like Perfios will be able to offer that services in a much more efficient and an effective way by riding on that rails. So I don't see, I mean, this is more of a facilitation enabling infrastructure than a challenge.
Absolutely. That is incredible. And Sabya, following up on the digital public infrastructure aspect, are there any other, what are some other digital public infrastructure goods that really excite you and you're really bullish on from the Indian landscape?
So I see, I mean, obviously it started with the JAM, the Jan the PMJDY, where the Jan accounts were created, and the test of the proof of the pudding is actually the COVID time, where all of them were struggling to distribute the money, and it would, in India, we never had any issues because it reached the end user who actually, the beneficiary who is supposed to need the money at that point in time, right? So that was amazing. Then came the UPI, where we are wanting to, the demon actually pushed that, and we knew that the cash is going away of the system. And today, if you see, I mean, if I have to pay you, I'll just, in split seconds, I'll be able to transfer the money without any hassles. We don't even think what is happening in the background. There's a lot of work that happens in the background, but look at the user experience, right? You don't bother. You just walk with
Absolutely.
your phone and not with your wallet. So that's the second disruption, and the digital public infrastructure. The third came the account aggregator, which is in a process to disrupt how the banking financial data is utilized through a consent instead of paper movement. So there is a proper audit trail, there is a source of truth, there are multiple data that can come. That's the third one. The fourth one that I see is the open, which is a lot of e-commerce, this supply chain side will get disrupted. And if you have seen the GEM, the government e-marketplace,
Right.
is riding a lot on that, right? And there will be a lot of financing that will happen using that book. The fourth one, which is top of the town now, is ONDC. And I love the way the Koshi puts it across that when you look at commerce, everybody has solved only the top layer. What about a small artisan in Northeast or in Kashmir who is wanting to sell his good without any hassle, without having to make large payments or keeping deposits? That's the third digital public infrastructure, which I think will disrupt the way the e-commerce operates, the way the marketplace operates. And that's where I think the financial world will also join the army there and kind of help moving the game up. So these are, I think, the things that is happening. There are many things which I can't talk about, but at least these are known to the world.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Sabya, for sharing your views on BPI. I'll have to now take a back foot and look at the Indian fintech landscape overall. Right? How do you see the fintech landscape evolving in India compared to global markets? And what unique opportunities does India present for fintech innovation?
So I think the first thing, the way we should look at India is the demographic dividend, which is very clear that India as a country itself has a lot of opportunities. Why? Because the age factor that we are in. We have the highest employable workforce globally. Whereas all other countries, some of the countries, I would not say all other countries, but some of the developed economies are not at an advantage point from that angle. Okay. So that itself means there is a lot of demand that can be generated on home ground. Now, when you look at fintech, you have to look at it from two lenses. One is fintech as a technology enabler. Second, fintech as not so much on a technology enabler, but they themselves are trying to get to the ground in providing financial services by using technology. So one is hardcore technology, companies like us, where I don't know whether that is commonly used word, but I mean, at least we coined it, calling ourselves as tech fin instead of a fintech. Because unfortunately, when we call ourselves fintech, people confuse more often than not, are you into lending business? We said, no, we are not. We are just a technology enabler as a product technology company, facilitating the finance world for lending or any other use case. So don't confuse. So just to create the distinction, we had to call ourselves as TechFin and not a fintech. But look at most of the fintechs, they created kind of the lending journeys on their own. They went into the ground to create the financial inclusion, to your point, where they were targeting, because of the use of technology, the tier 4, tier 5, tier 3 towns, where they could make the formal credit accessible to the people, which was a little difficult if you go back 10, 15 years back. Right? So that's the opportunity from a fintech space. How we are different globally and why there is opportunity. No country has a backing like the government of India, who has created the digital public infrastructure, because of which fintech can flourish so much. Because no fintech would have such deep pockets that they can invest in the technology the way the government itself can do, right? So look at the intent of the government, where every time our Prime Minister speaks, he says that startup is going to be the next thing, and it can disrupt, it can help the country, it can help achieve the 5 trillion vision that we have. I'm sure that 5 will become much bigger number, but that's the opportunity for fintech. So what is happening in the country as against globe? There is digital infrastructure in multiple forms, which you can ride on and offer the products on top of it, which every fintech is leveraging. Second, the policies are attuned towards startups to help startups get to the next level. Third, even regulations are now becoming more, I would say, attuned to include the fintechs in the formal financial world. And I see that there is more convergence than competition. There was a time when there was a competing attitude between the fintechs and the banks or so-called large financial services providers, versus today, where I see a convergence of they collaborating with each other and giving much better experience to the end user rather than getting into the same space. Because I see India as a country, look at the unbanked population, it's still huge.
Right.
Unbanked, underbanked. So there is opportunity for everyone, provided you actually understand how to solve that pain point. And that's why I think financial inclusion is not only just the government agenda, but most of the fintechs are also working towards it to help achieve that. Right? So that's the opportunity. And when you compare with globe, as I said, across the globe, you will see people hungry for digital transformation. So hence, I also feel strongly that whatever we have built for India is highly exportable. Even the digital public goods, and the first step is UPI, which is getting exported to other countries. And all other will follow suit sooner than later. So I think we are at an absolutely sweet spot. If we don't miss the execution, if we are just on track, stay focused, we'll make the country proud.
That is incredible, Sabya. And Sabya, doubling down on the Indian fintech landscape, given the rapid digitization of financial services, where do you see the next big opportunity in fintech, and how is Perfios positioning itself at the forefront of that wave?
Okay, so I call financial services largely, I'd split it into 4 large pillars. The banks, which is the banking system, the capital markets, then the insurance, and the 4th being NBFCs and fintechs. Now, each of these pillars are core to any country's economy, right? But each of these pillars are at different level and stage of maturity, evolution, and digital transformation. Most of the fintech, since the core of it is technology, I would link it a little bit with the digital transformation. Now, the banks are at a different level of maturity from a digital transformation. The capital market is at a different level. The insurance is at a different level. NBFCs and fintechs is at a different level. So the first opportunity is to bring everybody to the level where they should be ideally, right? That's the opportunity for all fintechs, all startups operating in this space. Of course, I'm not talking of the space outside BFS. So that's the first. The second, as we see more and more digital transformation, The next thing that comes to my mind is when you open every day the newspaper in the morning, you see some kind of frauds that would have happened with either a consumer or an entity or somebody almost every day. So how do we address that? So I think that's a large opportunity available for everyone. How do we address those? People have started working, including companies like us, Perfios, which has built very strong forensic solutions, fraud control solutions product. But there is lots that can be done more because, as you would know, that fraudster is always one step ahead of you. So you have to use, and that's where I think the deep tech, the AI, the machine learning, the kind of data, the modeling that you do, and the nuances that you pick up from every day. How can you make best use of that so that you can control the fraud, right? So there are trends that happens, and there was legacy system doing it in an archaic way versus how we are trying to do it with the use of more and more data and the forward-looking trend. That's the second one. The next one is on the insurtech side, on the insurance pillar. You would see a lot of fraud, wastage, abuse again happening, which I think there are solutions, but lots can be again done to improve on that, which we have built a solution. It is widely getting accepted globally. Actually, that product we launched outside India first and then brought it to India. We work with one of the largest insurance player outside India. And the product is exactly to understand how there are the fraud that happens during the claims that anybody makes. Right? So we are tackling that as a big problem, and there's a lot of opportunity there. The next is the behavioral science. There has been a lot of talk about that. So how do we understand and predict the person's behavior? Not that much has been spoken about, but there is work that is happening that can we predict as much we can the intent, the behavior of a person who would use any kind of a banking or a financial product. Right? So there is lots that's happening on that. And I think these are three core areas that I would say, apart from the basic trust task, which we are doing from a financial inclusion perspective, that to make the financial services product accessible to the last mile, which of course will require a lot of modifications in the way the product is offered today, the way the journeys are built today, the way the things are looked at, because you need very, very high efficiency there, because you can't put up a brick mortar store, branch, this, that. It is, if you have to do that digitally, you have to be far advanced in terms of understanding the person, the geo, the kind of business that a person does, the kind of work that he does. And all of this required huge amount of massaging of the data and understanding the trends for each of those segments. So I think these are broadly 3 or 4 areas that I see fintechs would see a lot of opportunities. And Perfios as a company is heavily investing in all of these areas.
That is incredible, Sabya. And I'm very glad to hear that, Perfios is truly at the forefront of the Indian fintech revolution and is actually helping spearhead it in a lot of subsectors. So, Sabya, let's talk about one of your tools in this war, essentially, right? So, Perfios has recently raised $229 million in new funding round, led by Kedara Capital. Firstly, I'd love to congratulate you on this.
Thank you. Thanks, Raghav.
So, Sabya, with this recent Series D funding round, can you elaborate on the strategic plans for utilizing this investment?
So it's very clear. The first thing is the market expansion. So we're looking to expand to US and Europe. So if you see, we already are present, as you said, in 18 geographies, and we started with a briefcase strategy, very simple, way back. And that was more for South Asia, then Southeast Asia, then Middle East, Africa. That's where we are present today. But obviously, US gives you a much bigger opportunity. It's a high risk, high return market. But obviously, as I said earlier, we have created a product made in India for the world. So we felt that the problem statements are same, if not same, at least similar everywhere, right? When you are looking at digital transformation. And so the first requirement is, can we expand ourselves to the markets where we are not present and give the products and the solutions to those markets as well, which is where I said the first priority is to expand there, and that's where the fund will get deployed. The second is we are a category creator. When I say category creator, when we started, there was nothing called digital transformation in the banking space. There was nothing called what we use today. We are used to, right? We more often than not, we are called in banking that everybody wants a Swiggy experience. Now, Swiggy also came in much later than what we did. Now, what that does mean? It means that when you're applying for a financial product, you almost in near real time want to experience the financial product. You have a need now, you want it now. Now, that was not possible 15 years back. Today, when you want to buy a car, if the car is available, which I don't control, but you need the finance to avail that car or any kind of product, you'll get it standing there in the dealership or in the store, right? It's imaginable now. But 15 years, 10 years, a decade back, we couldn't think of, because you had to go through a process. It will take anywhere between a week, fortnight, depending on the complexity of the product, can be 3 months. Today, the way we have created the product, and hence we call ourselves as category creator, because we created this category where you're availing any kind of product in near real time, right? Now, to maintain that, where we are continuously creating innovative product, you need at least decent size investment in the research and development. So the next big bet for us is research and development, and that's where the next fund is getting deployed, where we will create more and more innovative products in the times to come. So that's the next investment. And third is, of course, while we are doing all of this, how can we build a very, very robust team which will strengthen not only the company, but also help us get deeper in each of the markets. So I think that's the 3 broad areas where we will deploy the funds.
That's excellent, Sabya. Sabya, following up on this, so the valuation of Perfios has seen a significant jump, which reflects a very strong investor confidence. To what do you attribute this success, and how do you plan on sustaining it?
The first thing is the success of Perfios is because of Perfions. That means the employees of the company, right? We have a great team, absolutely amazing team from the day one. People work with us, love with us. The second is what we have created as a DNA, as a culture of the company, and we believe very strongly, is the founder's mindset. Everybody thinks like a founder, where we take pride in making something that we own, and we will do everything possible to make that successful. And if it is not, then fail fast theory applies. We quickly drop that, right? So I think the first thing that I will attribute towards this is the frugality of the company. We have been very, very frugal. That doesn't mean we don't invest, but we don't splurge. That means you run the company more tightly as a ship and make it profitable, which attracts investors. Also, you can deploy funds in better products for the future and leave the products which doesn't generate the kind of returns that it should. Right? That has been our theory. But as I said, the first is the amazing team that we have. And obviously, with all of this, we have built even tight processes to manage our risk, to manage our finances very, very tightly. And that's what attracts any kind of investors. I would say, there is no funding winter for good companies.
That's really powerful, Sabya. And Sabya, here's another fun fact that happened in Thailand. You're obviously aware of it. And I'm going to throw a couple of numbers now that I'm just blindly reading. Okay. So in October 2023, Perfios conducted an ESOP buyback of shares worth 154 crores, right? And as per Perfios, 80 of the 135 beneficiaries from the ESOP buyback are women, right? And 98% of the beneficiaries are under 30 years of age. And additionally, with this buyback, it has created 62 millionaires, which is incredible. And it really showcases the power of entrepreneurship in wealth creation, So
Absolutely.
I would love for you to take us through the strategic thinking behind this decision and its timing, especially as it pertains to your growth trajectory and the upcoming IPO.
It's very simple. We can call it strategic or whatever. But when we started, it was very clear from day one that create wealth, distribute wealth. That is in our DNA then and now. Only thing is, latest of late, the media is into action and picking the news. But this is not the first time that the company has done. Okay, this has happened earlier as well. Now, also in my previous response, I have told that if you see all the people who joined us 14, 15 years, 10 years back, they're still with us. The reason is there's a freedom to create something. That means you can enjoy the creativity, build something for the company and enjoy, right? If that's the philosophy, you need to give wealth or the opportunity to create wealth for them as well. So it's nothing very, very dramatic. So people make it dramatic. I would call it very, very simple. That if they are making that difference for the company, they are supposed to be rewarded, right? And what best way then to do it? So as a core philosophy is, as I said, create wealth, distribute wealth. Now the second on the women, just to give the number, we have roughly about around 52 to 55% women working in the company, including at the leadership level. So it is just that even when we have given ESOPs to people, there is diversity always. So actually the right talent is always rewarded. It has nothing to do with any gender. The third is the millionaires or the people who belong to the age below 30. So that also shows that experience is not counted by the number of years. Experience is counted by the number of adverse situations that you have dealt and you have come out with very, very innovative solutions. So even if you are a very, very young lad and have come out with a brilliant solution or a brilliant product to address a problem statement, there is always a reward. And that's what we have maintained. And I think that's why the three things that you said, this is how I would say that we have addressed as a company.
No, definitely, Sabya. And I think this entire story will be reshared multiple times because it's actually showcases the power of wealth creation that takes place when you work in a startup, right? When you're willing to take that risk, there is a significant reward as well at the end of it, right?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
So basically, what we are trying to say here is that there is that zeal, that entrepreneurship, that founder mindset that exists in most of us. It's just that if you create that environment for people to flourish, and the company also takes a bit of a risk there are enough and more people, enough and more young folks, and the energy, the kind of excitement that young folks bring when I work with them, the kind of excitement, if you see, is just out of the world. So I'm sure if that founder mindset is there, and if we as a company can support, what better in creating and disrupting the way the products can be rolled out for the financial world, because that's the space that we operate, but for everyone, for any kind of industry, I would say.
Awesome. And Sabya, I want to pick up a thread that I had mentioned previously. As you prepare for an IPO in the next 18, 24 months, how are you ensuring that Perfios is ready for the transition from a private company to a public company?
So this is not a journey that starts immediately, but this has been a while. That first thing that you have to do, which we have done from day one, is to remain frugal, be focused on your finances, be focused on your risk management, and build the core team which can drive this. And if you see, we have been frugal from day one. We even maintain the same philosophy, and we feel that has helped us, that will continue to help us. The second, if you see, is the way our processes are set, the way the risk management is addressed, is we have taken appropriate caution while we are building any kind of products and how we are approaching market by market instead of jumping all guns and spraying and praying in all the markets. The third being, if you see that we have been strengthening our people, both in this at C level and the level below, that would be able to drive the company to that level. So I think these are all internal measures. Apart from that, we are strengthening different kind of processes, different kind of systems that we are bringing in, which brings the right kind of capabilities in terms of when we hit the public market. But while we are doing this, what is not in our control is the macro. We don't control the narrative there, right? We have no, but instead of worrying too much about how the macro will do, how the global economy will operate, whether there will be an impact because of US economy, I think it is better spent with the time well spent in terms of if we utilize our energies towards strengthening our internal processes and systems, which is what we are doing. So that's the way that we look at how we are preparing ourselves. We don't know the right timing. It depends. It's a combination of internal and macro. But I think internally, we should be prepared in the time frame that we are seeing.
Awesome. Sabya, I have one last question for you. This is something we ask every Indianaut or entrepreneur who comes to the platform, right? As a seasoned professional with a wealth of experience in the banking and fintech sector, what advice would you give to aspiring entrepreneurs looking to start their own fintech ventures?
So two things comes to my mind. I'll see whether the third I can add. The first is have belief in your idea when you're starting off. Very soon, because you are asking for the people who may not be experts and you get threatened that my idea is not the best, let me drop off. Have patience to hold on to that idea because that's your idea which you believe in, and you'll have to find ways to work on that. You may have to polish that idea a bit, see how that can be scaled for the market to accept that, position it appropriately. But I think you need to yourself have the best belief for that. The second is, from day one, don't be in a rush to raise money. It has become the buzzword. As soon as my product is liked by one or two people, let me raise money. My way to look at it is keep it very simple. Create the product, work on your idea, approach the market, and see the market fit, and don't raise immediately. Once you see the market fit, get some customers on board, which is paying customers. See the business. Then go for raise, because if you do that early, it will put pressure to deviate from your core original idea or thoughts, because there will be always pressure of return. You shouldn't be, because as an innovator, as a startup guy, your ideas is what matters. You should focus more on that instead of raising money and return, right? These are two top things that comes to my mind always. And then be close to the ground always. Even though you become the biggest giant in your field, stay humble, be frugal, and be close to the ground always. That will help you grow continuously.
Absolutely. And I think your 15-year journey is very well the proof of that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Sabya, for joining us today. We wish you and Perfios the very best for the future.
Thanks a lot, Gautam, for having me. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us for this episode. The Indianaut podcast is available on YouTube, Apple Music, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. Be sure to follow us on Instagram and Facebook to receive all updates and get new episodes. We'll see you in the next one.